The distress signal came from the outer rim of the galaxy, where civilized space met the endless void. Ambassador Zara Th of the Galactic Council stared at the holographic display showing the transmitted message. Her 6 arms trembled as she watched the desperate plea from the Kalani Confederation. Esteemed council members, the blue-skinned Kalani representative spoke through static-filled transmission. Our worlds burn. The Vortex swarm has consumed 17 of our colonies. We have lost 3 billion lives in the past month alone. Our fleets are broken. Our defenses have fallen. We begged the Council for immediate military assistance. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened within hours. Representatives from dozens of species filled the Great Chamber on Centralis Prime. The air buzzed with nervous energy as translators worked overtime to convert the rapid discussions between species. The Vortex are not our problem, declared Senator Mordun of the Hegemony, his metallic voice echoing through the chamber. The Kalani chose to expand into contested space. They knew the risks. Councillor Vexera from the Silicon Collective projected agreement through her crystalline form. Our military assets are already stretched thin maintaining peace in the core systems. We cannot spare ships for a border conflict. Ambassador Zara Th watched the debate with growing frustration. The council had grown comfortable and complacent during centuries of peace. They had forgotten what real war looked like. The Vortex swarm represented something far more dangerous than a simple border dispute. You do not understand, she interrupted, her voice carrying across the chamber. I have studied the Vortex for decades. They are not raiders or pirates seeking quick profit. They are a consuming force. They strip worlds of all biological matter and move on. If we allow them to finish with the Kalani, they will turn their attention to the next nearest systems. Speculation and fear-mongering, Senator Mordun replied dismissively. The Kalani have always been prone to exaggeration. Their military incompetence does not constitute a galactic emergency. The debate continued for hours. Species after species rose to explain why they could not or would not commit military forces to help the Kalani. The Treasury world cited economic concerns. The military alliance claimed their forces were needed elsewhere. The merchant guilds worried about trade route disruptions. Meanwhile, the Kalani continued to die. Fresh reports arrived every few hours. The Vortex had taken 3 more worlds. Kalani refugees fled in whatever ships could carry them. The remaining Kalani fleet had managed one desperate counterattack that accomplished nothing except adding more debris to space. There must be someone willing to help, Zara Th pleaded during a brief recess. She approached various representatives privately, hoping to find support away from the political theater of the main chamber. The mathematical probability of success is too low, explained the Logical Axiom Syndicate representative. Deploying our forces would result in unnecessary casualties for minimal strategic gain. Our people remember Kalani aggression from 3 centuries ago, the ancient Eternal Empire delegate stated coldly. We see no reason to risk our citizens for those who once raided our borders. Even the peacekeeping organizations offered only humanitarian aid. Medical ships and refugee transport, but no military intervention. The galaxy watched the Kalani die and calculated the cost of getting involved. That evening, Zara Th sat alone in her quarters, reviewing the latest intelligence reports. The Vortex fleet had grown larger with each conquest. They absorbed destroyed ships, recycled the materials, and built more vessels. What had started as perhaps 1,000 ships had become nearly 3,000. Each victory made them stronger. Her communication console chimed with an incoming message. The sender identification made her pause. It came from the Sol system, home of the newest members of the Galactic Council. Humans had joined the galactic community only 50 years ago. They maintained a small embassy on Centralis Prime but rarely participated in major council debates. Most species considered them primitive newcomers with little to offer more advanced civilizations. Ambassador Sarah Chen appeared on the hologram, her expression serious. Ambassador Zara Th, I've been monitoring the council sessions regarding the Kalani situation. My government would like to formally request all available intelligence on the Vortex swarm. Zara Th felt a flutter of hope. Ambassador Chen, are the humans considering military assistance? I should warn you, every other major power has declined involvement. We're still evaluating our options, Chen replied carefully. But my people have some experience dealing with aggressive expansionist forces. We'd like to understand exactly what we're dealing with. Within hours, human intelligence officers arrived at the Kalani embassy. They studied tactical data, fleet movements, and battle recordings with an intensity that impressed even the detail-oriented Kalani military analysts. Captain Sarah Johnson, the human military attaché, spent hours reviewing the Vortak ship designs and combat tactics. They're using swarm tactics, she observed to her team. Overwhelming numbers, minimal individual ship protection, rapid replacement of losses. Classic doctrine for a hive mind species. Their ships appear to be grown rather than built, noted Lieutenant Marcus Webb, the human xenobiology expert. Organic hulls with integrated weapons systems. They can repair damage quickly and adapt to new threats within a few battles. What's their industrial base? Asked Commander Lisa Park, the strategic analyst. The Kalani representatives exchanged glances. We believe they convert conquered worlds into breeding and construction facilities, Admiral Thekmore explained. Each world they take increases their production capacity exponentially. The human team worked through the night, building detailed models of Vortak capabilities and analyzing their expansion pattern. By morning, they had reached some disturbing conclusions. They're not just threatening the Kalani, Captain Johnson reported to Ambassador Chen. Based on their growth rate and expansion pattern, they'll be in position to threaten core worlds within 5 years if no one stops them. Ambassador Chen nodded grimly. Send your analysis to Fleet Command immediately. Encrypted with the highest security protocols. The next day's council session began with another desperate plea from the Kalani. Their government had relocated to their last remaining stronghold world. 3/4 of their territory was now under Vortak control. Refugee ships crowded around neutral systems begging for sanctuary. We have perhaps 2 weeks before our final defenses fall, the Kalani representative announced, his voice breaking. After that, the Vortak will have access to our industrial shipyards and our remaining population. We estimate they will construct at least 10,000 new vessels within the first year. The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. 10,000 ships would represent a force capable of challenging even the major powers. Perhaps we should reconsider our position, Councillor Vexera transmitted uncertainly. 10,000 ships would pose a significant threat to trade routes. Only if they choose to attack us, Senator Mordaunt replied stubbornly. The hegemony worlds are well defended. Let them exhaust themselves against our border fortifications. Ambassador Chen rose from the human delegation's modest seating area. All eyes turned to her as she approached the central speaking platform. The humans rarely spoke during major debates, making her presence noteworthy. Honored council members, she began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustics. My government has completed its analysis of the Vortak threat. We believe immediate action is necessary to prevent a galactic catastrophe. Murmurs rippled through the assembled delegates. Several species expressed surprise that the humans had presumed to conduct their own intelligence assessment. The mathematics are clear, Chen continued, activating a holographic display showing the human analysis. The Vortak growth rate means they will possess overwhelming military superiority within a decade if left unchecked. No single species will be capable of resisting them individually. Senator Mordaunt's metallic laugh echoed through the chamber. The humans believe they understand galactic warfare better than species who have fought among the stars for millennia? How presumptuous. We understand exponential growth and industrial warfare, Chen replied calmly. Our species has extensive experience with total war scenarios. We recognize the signs. What exactly are you proposing? Demanded the Treasury representative. That we bankrupt ourselves fighting someone else's war? Ambassador Chen looked directly at the Kalani delegation, then, back to the council. We're proposing that humanity will provide military assistance to the Kalani Confederation immediately. We're not asking for council approval or support. We're informing you of our decision. The chamber erupted in shocked discussion. Several delegates laughed openly. The humans possessed perhaps 200 ships, mostly exploration and transport vessels. The idea that they could succeed where no one else would try seemed absurd. With respect, Ambassador Chen, Councillor Vexera projected politely, human military capabilities are limited. Your intervention, while admirable in intent, would likely result only in adding your ships to the casualty lists. You may be right, Chen acknowledged. But, my government has decided that the long-term threat to galactic stability requires immediate action. We will not stand by and watch genocide while calculating political costs. She transmitted a data packet to the Council's central computers. These are our formal diplomatic notifications. As of this moment, the Sol Federation declares a state of war against the Vortex swarm. We invoke Article 12 of the Galactic Charter, requiring all member species to provide humanitarian corridor access for military operations. Article 12 was an ancient provision that few species remembered. It granted wartime passage rights through neutral space for defensive military operations. The humans had somehow found and invoked a nearly forgotten law that the Council could not easily refuse. This is madness, Senator Mordun protested. The humans will be destroyed within weeks. Then, we'll have the Vortex and a precedent for unilateral military action. The precedent already exists, Ambassador Zarek interjected, rising from her seat. The Turanian Republic exercised similar rights during the synthetic wars 2 centuries ago. The legal foundation is solid. Ambassador Chen bowed formally to the Council. We thank the honored delegates for their time and consideration. Human forces will begin deployment immediately. We hope this action will provide the colony people with the assistance they desperately need. As the human delegation filed out of the chamber, the remaining council members sat in stunned silence. The newest and, seemingly least powerful member of their organization had just declared war on a force that threatened the entire galaxy. They're going to die, Senator Mordun stated flatly. Perhaps, Ambassador Zarek replied quietly. But, they're going to die fighting for something bigger than themselves. When did the rest of us become too comfortable to remember what that means? The emergency session continued, but the focus had shifted. No longer were they debating whether to help the colony. Now they had to decide how to respond to humanity's unilateral declaration of war. Some called it heroic. Others called it suicidal. But no one could ignore it. In the depths of space, human fleet elements were already moving toward colony territory. Admiral Rebecca Martinez commanded the largest military force humanity had ever assembled for offensive operations. 200 ships seemed pathetically small compared to the thousands the Vortex commanded. But the humans brought something to this fight that the galaxy had forgotten. They brought the willingness to risk everything for strangers they had never met, simply because it was the right thing to do. The distress call had been answered. Humanity was coming to war. Admiral Rebecca Martinez stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, watching the tactical display show her fleet's approach to colony space. 200 ships represented the largest military force humanity had ever sent beyond their home system. Against the Vortex's estimated 4,000 vessels, the numbers looked impossible. Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the colony flagship, reported Communications Officer Torres. They're requesting permission to coordinate battle plans. Put them through, Martinez ordered. The main screen flickered to life, showing Admiral Thekmore of the remaining colony fleet. His blue skin had paled with exhaustion, and his normally proud bearing showed the weight of losing most of his people. Admiral Martinez, Thekmore said, his voice carrying relief and confusion in equal measure. We are grateful beyond words for your arrival, but, I must ask, where is the rest of your fleet? This is our fleet, Admiral, Martinez replied calmly. All available combat vessels and support ships. We came as soon as the Council received your distress signal. Thekmore's expression shifted from hope to dismay. 200 ships? Admiral, with respect, the Vortex just took 3 more systems yesterday. Their advanced fleet alone numbers over 1,000 vessels. We cannot possibly. Admiral, Martinez interrupted gently, my species has a saying, it's not the size of the dog in the fight, it's the size of the fight in the dog. Tell me about your current tactical situation. The colony commander transmitted detailed battlefield intelligence. The Vortex had established staging areas on conquered worlds, using the planet's resources to build more ships and breed more warriors. Their fleet composition favored overwhelming numbers over individual ship quality. They attack in massive swarms, Thekmore explained, highlighting battle recordings. 500 ships at once, sometimes more. They accept tremendous casualties because they can replace losses quickly. Our defensive positions are overwhelmed through sheer weight of numbers. Captain Sarah Johnson, Martinez's tactical advisor, studied the recordings intently. Their individual ships aren't particularly advanced, she observed. Organic construction, limited armor, basic energy weapons. But they coordinate perfectly and show no fear of death. That's correct, confirmed Thekmore. They're controlled by a hive mind. No individual initiative, but perfect unit coordination. They sacrifice entire squadrons without hesitation if it advances their overall objective. Martinez nodded thoughtfully. What's the status of your remaining forces? 47 ships operational, another dozen under repair, Thekmore reported. We've been fighting a running retreat for weeks. Morale is difficult to maintain when facing such odds. Admiral Thekmore, Martinez said formally, I'm placing all Kalani forces under Joint Human-Kalani Command for the duration of this operation. Are you willing to accept integrated tactical control? The Kalani admiral hesitated. His species had been spacefaring for over 1,000 years, while humans had barely reached beyond their own solar system 50 years ago. Accepting orders from such newcomers went against every military tradition he knew. But his people were dying, and no one else had come to help. I accept joint command, Thekmore replied with dignity. What are your orders, Admiral? Martinez turned to her staff. Commander Park, show Admiral Thekmore our battle plan. The tactical display shifted to show the current Vorthak positions and movement patterns. The swarm occupied 17 former Kalani worlds and was preparing to assault the last major stronghold system. The Vorthak expect us to defend the remaining Kalani worlds, Park explained. Standard military doctrine would be to establish defensive perimeters and force them to come to us. That's what every other species would do. But we're not going to defend, Martinez added. We're going to attack. Thekmore stared at the display in disbelief. Admiral, attacking their main force would be suicide. They have overwhelming numerical superiority. They do, Martinez agreed. But they also have a weakness. Commander Park? Park highlighted the Vorthak rear areas. They're strip mining conquered worlds to build more ships. That requires massive industrial installations and breeding facilities. All of their expansion depends on those rear area bases. We're going to bypass their main fleet and hit their industrial infrastructure, Martinez explained. Without those facilities, they can't replace their losses. Eventually, attrition will work in our favor. The plan was audacious to the point of madness. Human and Kalani forces would split into small, fast-moving groups and strike simultaneously at a dozen Vorthak-held worlds. Each group would target the industrial facilities and evacuate before the main Vorthak fleet could respond. This requires precise timing and coordination, warned Captain Johnson. If any group gets caught by the main fleet, they'll be annihilated. Then, we don't get caught, Martinez replied simply. Speed, surprise, and hit-and-run tactics. We make them chase us around their own territory while we destroy everything they need to sustain their war effort. Admiral Thekmore studied the plan with growing amazement. It violated every principle of conventional space warfare, but it also represented their only chance of success. The Kalani military tradition emphasized honor and direct confrontation. What the humans proposed felt almost like piracy. But pirates might survive when honorable warriors would not. How do we coordinate attacks across such distances? Thekmore asked. Conventional communication would take hours between target systems. Lieutenant Webb, the human xenobiology expert, smiled. That's where we have an advantage. Humans developed quantum entanglement communication during our early space exploration. Instantaneous communication across any distance. The Kalani admiral's eyes widened. Quantum communication was theoretical technology that most species considered impossible to implement practically. If the humans had actually solved that problem. Every ship group will have quantum communicators, Webb continued. Perfect coordination across the entire operational area. When we hit them, it'll be everywhere at once. Over the next 18 hours, the combined fleet prepared for the most desperate military operation in Kalani history. Human engineers worked alongside Kalani technicians to modify ships for the new tactical requirements. Weapons were reconfigured for precision strikes rather than fleet battles. Stealth systems were enhanced to avoid detection. Captain Elena Rodriguez commanded one of the strike groups, consisting of 20 human ships and 6 Kalani vessels. Her target was the industrial world of Kethvar, where the Vorthak had established a major shipbuilding facility. Remember, she briefed her mixed crew, we're not here to win a battle. We're here to break things and leave. Maximum damage, minimum engagement time. Anyone who tries to be a hero gets the whole group killed. The Kalani crew members looked uncomfortable with these instructions. Their military culture emphasized personal courage and direct confrontation with enemies. This surgical strike approach felt cowardly to warriors trained in traditional combat. Captain Rodriguez asked Kalani Lieutenant Vextal, "What if we encounter strong resistance? Shouldn't we stand and fight to ensure the mission succeeds?" Lieutenant Rodriguez replied patiently, "Success means destroying their factories and getting out alive to hit the next target. Dead heroes don't destroy enemy infrastructure. We fight only when we have to, and we run whenever we can." Meanwhile, on the UES Defiance, Admiral Martinez coordinated with the other strike group commanders. 12 groups would hit targets simultaneously, stretching across hundreds of light years. The Vortak would have to choose between defending their industrial base or pursuing the raiders. "All groups report ready for operation commencement," reported Communications Officer Torres. "Quantum communicators are synchronized and functioning normally." Martinez looked at the tactical display one final time. In a few hours, they would either begin the liberation of Kalani space or add their names to the casualty lists. The numbers still looked impossible, but humanity had faced impossible odds before. "All groups," she announced over the quantum communication network, "initiate Operation Broken Chain. Time to show these bugs what humans do to bullies." Captain Rodriguez's group dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the HFY system. Long-range sensors immediately detected massive industrial activity on the planet's surface. The Vortak had built enormous biofactories that stretched across entire continents. "Target analysis complete," reported her tactical officer. 67 major manufacturing complexes, each producing approximately one ship hull per day. Estimated completion time for in-progress vessels ranges from weeks to months. "Defensive fleet?" Rodriguez asked. "Minimal presence. 43 vessels in orbital patrol patterns. Mostly light units, probably left behind when the main fleet moved to offensive operations." Rodriguez felt a predatory smile. "Perfect. All ships implement attack pattern Delta. Precision strikes on the largest manufacturing facilities. Ignore the orbital defenders unless they directly threaten our approach." The human Kalani strike force accelerated toward the planet at maximum speed. The element of surprise lasted exactly 7 minutes before Vortak sensors detected their approach. By then, it was too late for effective defensive response. The Vortak ships moved to intercept, but they were designed for swarm tactics rather than independent operation. Without direct control from the hive mind, they responded predictably and slowly. The strike force's superior speed and maneuverability allowed them to avoid most defensive fire. "Beginning bombardment run," announced Lieutenant Commander Park from the UES Vigilant. "Target, primary fabrication complex, North Continent." Human kinetic weapons and Kalani energy beams struck the industrial targets with devastating precision. The biofactories, never designed to withstand military attack, collapsed under the assault. Explosions rippled across the planet's surface as decades of Vortak construction was destroyed in minutes. "Secondary targets acquired," reported the Kalani ship KCS Honor's Edge. "Breeding facilities and resource processing centers marked for destruction." The attack continued for exactly 12 minutes. By the time Vortak reinforcements arrived from nearby systems, the strike force was already preparing to jump back into hyperspace. Behind them, HFY burned. "Mission accomplished," Rodriguez reported to Admiral Martinez. "Industrial capacity destroyed, minimal friendly casualties. Moving to rally point for next operation." Similar reports came in from strike groups across Vortak territory. The simultaneous attacks had caught the enemy completely unprepared. 12 industrial worlds suffered devastating damage in less than an hour. But the Vortak response was swift and terrible. The main fleet divided into pursuit groups and began hunting the human Kalani raiders. Any group that moved too slowly or stayed too long in one system found themselves facing overwhelming numbers. Strike Group 7 learned this lesson too late. Captain Morrison's force had lingered at their target world to ensure complete destruction of the industrial facilities. When Vortak reinforcements arrived, they found themselves trapped in a running battle against 500 enemy ships. "All vessels, emergency withdrawal," Morrison ordered over the quantum network. "We're being overwhelmed here." Admiral Martinez watched the tactical display with growing concern as Strike Group 7 fought desperately to escape. They were too far from the nearest friendly forces for rescue, and the Vortak were closing in. "Should we send reinforcements?" asked Commander Park. Martinez shook her head grimly. "We can't compromise the overall operation for one group. Captain Morrison knows the risks." The quantum communicator crackled with Morrison's final transmission. "Tell my family I kept my promise." Operation Broken Chain continues. Strike Group 7 was destroyed to the last ship, but their sacrifice bought time for the other groups to escape. The humans had learned their first hard lesson about fighting the Vortak: speed was life, and any hesitation meant death. Over the next week, the hit-and-run campaign continued with growing effectiveness. Human quantum communication allowed perfect coordination between groups separated by hundreds of light-years. The Vortak, accustomed to direct control from their hive mind, struggled to adapt to this new form of warfare. Industrial capacity across occupied colony space dropped by 60%. Ship production slowed to a crawl as the Vortak were forced to dedicate more resources to defending their rear areas. For the first time since the war began, their expansion ground to a halt. But the cost was mounting. Humanity had lost 37 ships and over 6,000 crew members. The colony had suffered similar losses. Against any conventional enemy, these casualties would represent a devastating defeat. Against the Vortak, it was progress. "Admiral," reported Lieutenant Torres during the morning briefing, "we're receiving communication from the Galactic Council. They're requesting an immediate status report on our military operations." Martinez allowed herself a tired smile. The same council that had refused to help was now demanding information about the only successful military action against the Vortak. Politics never changed, regardless of species. "Tell the council that Operation Broken Chain proceeds according to schedule," she replied. Human and colony forces continue to degrade enemy industrial capacity through coordinated strikes. "We estimate another 2 weeks will be required to achieve strategic objectives." What she didn't mention was that they had perhaps 50 operational ships remaining. The campaign was succeeding, but it was consuming their forces at an unsustainable rate. They needed something more than hit-and-run attacks to win this war. They needed a miracle. Or they needed to become something the galaxy had never seen before. Admiral Martinez stared at the holographic display showing the current tactical situation. 2 weeks of hit-and-run raids had achieved their objective of crippling Vortak industrial capacity, but at a terrible cost. The combined human colony force was down to 43 operational ships. "Admiral," reported Commander Park, "long-range sensors are detecting a massive Vortak fleet movement. They're consolidating forces from across their territory." The display updated to show enemy fleet positions. Over 3,000 ships were converging on the last major colony stronghold system. With their industrial base damaged, the Vortak had apparently decided to end the war with one overwhelming assault. "They're adapting faster than we expected," observed Captain Johnson. "The hive mind has learned from our tactics and shifted to a more aggressive strategy." Lieutenant Torres looked up from her communication station. "Admiral, we're receiving transmissions from the Galactic Council. Multiple species are reporting Vortak scout ships in their border systems." Martinez felt a chill run down her spine. "Put the council transmission on screen." Ambassador Zarath appeared in the hologram, her 6 arms moving in agitated patterns. "Admiral Martinez, the situation has deteriorated rapidly. Vortak fleets have been detected approaching 17 different star systems belonging to 6 different species. They appear to be expanding the war beyond colony space. What's the council's response?" Martinez asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. "Emergency sessions are being held," Zarath replied diplomatically. "Several species are demanding immediate negotiations with the Vortak leadership." Translation: panic and appeasement. The galaxy's politicians wanted to negotiate with a hive mind that communicated only through violence and consumption. "Ambassador," Martinez said carefully, "has the council considered that the Vortak expansion might be related to our successful attacks on their industrial capacity? They may be seeking new sources of raw materials and population to convert." Zarath's expression confirmed Martinez's suspicion. "That possibility has been discussed. Some council members believe that human military actions may have escalated the conflict unnecessarily." "Of course they did. When politicians faced an uncomfortable reality, they always blamed the people trying to solve the problem rather than addressing the problem itself. "Admiral," interrupted Lieutenant Webb, "we're receiving a priority transmission from Sol System. It's marked with Admiral Fletcher's personal codes." Admiral Henry Fletcher commanded the Sol Defense Force, Earth's primary military organization. If he was transmitting personally to the operation zone, something significant was happening back home. "Put him through," Martinez ordered. Fletcher appeared on screen, his weathered face grim with determination. "Admiral Martinez, I'm transmitting under direct orders from the Solar Federation Council. Operation Broken Chain has been declared a strategic success, but intelligence indicates the Vortak are preparing a decisive counterattack." "Sir, we've already detected their fleet movements," Martinez replied. "They're massing over 3,000 ships for an assault on the remaining colony positions." "That's just the beginning," Fletcher said grimly. "Our deep space monitoring stations have detected additional Vortak fleets moving toward the galactic core. They're not just planning to finish the colony. They're preparing to invade the major powers." Martinez felt the weight of implications settle on her shoulders. "What are my orders, sir?" "You are hereby authorized to implement the Prometheus Protocol," Fletcher announced formally. "All restrictions on military technology deployment are lifted for the duration of this operation. You have full authority to utilize any means necessary to stop the Vortak advance." The Prometheus Protocol. Martinez had never expected to hear those words in her lifetime. It was humanity's most classified military secret, developed during their early space expansion when they discovered how dangerous the galaxy could be. "Sir," she said carefully, "implementing Prometheus will reveal capabilities we've kept hidden for 50 years. There will be political consequences." "Admiral," Fletcher replied with steel in his voice, "if we don't stop the Vortak here and now, there won't be a galactic civilization left to have political consequences. The Council species are talking about negotiation while the enemy masses for total war. Someone has to make the hard choices." The transmission ended, leaving Martinez alone with her staff and a decision that would change humanity's place in the galaxy forever. Around her, the bridge crew waited for orders that would determine whether the war could still be won. "Commander Park," Martinez said finally, "initiate Protocol 7 communications. Contact all human deep space installations and activate the reserve fleet." Park's eyes widened. "Ma'am, are you certain?" "Once we reveal the reserve fleet's existence." "The time for secrets is over," Martinez interrupted. "If we're going to save this galaxy, we need to show them what humans are really capable of." Over the next 6 hours, subspace communications reached into the deepest regions of human-controlled space. Hidden bases that officially didn't exist received activation orders. Ships that had never appeared on any public registry began moving toward the combat zone. The reserve fleet had been humanity's secret insurance policy since joining the Galactic Council. While publicly maintaining a modest military presence, human engineers had been quietly building a force capable of defending their species against any potential threat. Admiral Thekmore watched in amazement as the sensor displays began registering new arrivals. Ship after ship dropped out of hyperspace at the rally point, but these weren't the exploration vessels and light cruisers that had comprised the original human fleet. "Admiral Martinez," he transmitted urgently, "my sensors are detecting, this cannot be accurate." "Are those battleships?" The UES Retribution materialized first, a massive vessel bristling with weapons and armor. 1,200 meters long and carrying enough firepower to level continents, it dwarfed anything the colony had ever seen humans deploy. Behind it came the UES Vengeance, the UES Determination, and dozens of other heavy warships. Within hours, the human fleet had grown from 43 ships to over 400 vessels, many of them purpose-built for large-scale warfare. "Admiral Thekmore," Martinez replied calmly, "allow me to introduce you to the real human military. We've been preparing for this day since we first learned about galactic warfare. The secret fleet included technologies that no other species knew humans possessed. Gravitic weapons that could crush enemy ships like tin cans. Energy shields that could deflect anything in the known arsenal. Quantum torpedoes that could phase through conventional defenses. Most importantly, it included the crown jewel of human military engineering, the UES Prometheus herself, a ship designed specifically to fight enemies like the Vortak. Captain Diana Ross commanded the Prometheus, and she brought disturbing news from the galactic core. "Admiral, our intelligence networks are reporting mass panic across 17 star systems. The Vorthak have simultaneously attacked border worlds belonging to 6 different species. The Galactic Council is in complete disarray. What about military response from the major powers? Martinez asked. Minimal so far, Ross replied grimly. The hegemony has recalled their fleets to defend their core worlds. The Silicon Collective is negotiating with the Vorthak through mathematical theorems. Only the Turanian Republic has actually engaged enemy forces, and they were defeated within hours. The galaxy's greatest military powers were failing exactly as Martinez had feared. They had grown complacent during centuries of peace, their forces designed for limited conflicts rather than total war. Against an enemy that fought with complete commitment and no regard for casualties, traditional tactics were useless. Status of Vorthak forces in this sector? Martinez inquired. The main assault fleet has completed assembly, reported Captain Ross. 3,200 vessels, advancing in standard swarm formation toward the last colony stronghold. They'll arrive within 18 hours. Martinez studied the tactical display, considering options that had been impossible with their previous force strength. The hidden fleet changed everything, but it also revealed humanity's true capabilities to the galaxy. There would be no going back to being underestimated newcomers. All ships, she announced over the fleet communication network, we are implementing Operation Total War. This is no longer a rescue mission or a limited intervention. This is a demonstration to the galaxy that some lines cannot be crossed. The plan was audacious even by human standards. Rather than defending the colony stronghold, they would advance directly toward the incoming Vorthak fleet. 400 human ships and 30 colony vessels would attack over 3,000 enemy vessels in open space. Admiral, protested Admiral Thekmore, even with these reinforcements, we're still outnumbered 8-1. The mathematics of space combat suggest. Admiral, Martinez interrupted gently, human mathematics are different. We don't calculate odds. We calculate possibilities. The fleet advanced in formation that no galactic military doctrine would recognize. Rather than maintaining defensive clusters, the human ships spread out in a complex pattern that maximized their advanced weapon systems' effectiveness while minimizing the Vorthak swarm tactics' advantages. Enemy fleet detected, reported the sensor officer aboard the Retribution. Range, for like minutes and closing. Composition matches intelligence estimates, organic construction, minimal individual defensive capability, perfect unit coordination. All ships, implement pattern Delta, ordered Martinez. Commence long-range engagement with gravitic weapons. Target priority, command vessels and communication nodes. The space between the fleets erupted with weapons fire unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human gravitic cannons reached across millions of kilometers to crush Vorthak vessels before they could respond. Quantum torpedoes phased through enemy shields to detonate inside ship hulls. The Vorthak responded with their traditional swarm rush, accelerating their entire fleet toward the human formation. It was 3 days after the destruction of the main Vorthak assault fleet, Admiral Martinez received intelligence that changed everything about humanity's role in the galactic war. The data came from the most unlikely source imaginable, the Vorthak themselves. Lieutenant Webb burst into the Admiral's ready room with unprecedented excitement. Ma'am, you need to see this immediately. We intercepted quantum transmissions from the Vorthak homeworld during their fleet's destruction. Our computers have been analyzing the data patterns. Martinez looked up from the diplomatic messages flooding her communication system. Every major species in the galaxy wanted to negotiate military assistance agreements now that humanity had proven capable of defeating the Vorthak in open battle. What did you find, Lieutenant? Webb activated a holographic display showing complex mathematical structures and biological data. Admiral, the Vorthak aren't an original species. They're a weapon. The implications hit Martinez like a physical blow. Explain. The quantum transmissions contained historical data going back millions of years, Webb continued rapidly. The Vorthak were created by an extinct civilization called the Architects. They were designed as the ultimate biological weapon system for galactic warfare. The display shifted to show ancient star charts and timeline data. The Architects ruled most of this galaxy 2 million years ago. When they faced extinction from an unknown threat, they created the Vorthak as their final act of vengeance. A self-replicating weapon that would consume all biological civilization. Martinez stared at the data with growing horror. You're telling me we're fighting artificial organisms designed specifically to destroy galactic civilization? Yes, ma'am. But there's more. The architect programming included a fail-safe system. If the Vortak ever encountered a species that could consistently defeat them in combat, the failsafe would activate and shut down their entire collective consciousness. The room fell silent as the implications became clear. Humanity hadn't just won a battle, they had potentially triggered an ancient mechanism that could end the Vortak threat forever. What are the activation requirements for this failsafe? Martinez asked. Webb consulted his data tablet. The Vortak must suffer 3 consecutive major defeats by the same enemy species. Our destruction of their main assault fleet was the first qualifying defeat. We need 2 more victories of similar magnitude to activate the shutdown sequence. Martinez immediately called an emergency staff meeting. Within an hour, her senior officers were assembled in the main briefing room aboard the UES Defiance, along with Admiral Thekmore representing the colony forces. The situation has fundamentally changed, Martinez announced, sharing Webb's intelligence with the assembled officers. We're no longer fighting a species. We're fighting a weapon system that can be turned off if we meet specific conditions. Captain Ross from the Prometheus studied the data intently. Admiral, this explains their perfect coordination and complete lack of fear. They're not alive in any meaningful sense. They're organic machines following ancient programming. It also explains why they've been so successful against other species, added Commander Park. Every other military force in the galaxy fights like they're dealing with a living enemy that can be negotiated with or deterred. The Vortak can't be deterred because they're not actually alive. Admiral Thekmore raised a troubling question. If this failsafe exists, why hasn't it been triggered before? Surely some species in the past 2 million years must have defeated them 3 times. Lieutenant Webb had an answer ready. The programming requires 3 consecutive major defeats by the same species within a specific time frame. Most civilizations that defeated the Vortak once were then overwhelmed by the response. The few that managed 2 victories were destroyed before they could achieve a third. What constitutes a major defeat in the programming? Asked Captain Johnson. Destruction of at least 1,000 Vortak vessels in a single engagement, Webb replied. Our recent battle qualifies because we destroyed over 3,000 ships. We need 2 more victories of similar scope. Martinez studied the tactical situation. Current Vortak fleet strength throughout the galaxy? Approximately 15,000 vessels spread across 43 star systems, reported the intelligence officer. They're currently engaged with 7 different species, but none of those engagements are going well for our side. The challenge became clear. Humanity needed to destroy at least 2,000 more Vortak ships in 2 separate battles, while the enemy was now aware of human capabilities and would be developing countermeasures. Ma'am, interrupted Lieutenant Torres, we're receiving an urgent transmission from the Galactic Council. Emergency session has been called. They're demanding immediate human participation. Martinez sighed. Politics and warfare made uncomfortable partners, but humanity's revelation of advanced military capabilities meant they could no longer avoid galactic politics. Admiral Thekmore, you have command of the fleet. Continue reconstruction operations in liberated colony space. I'm taking a small escort to Centralis Prime for this council session. The Galactic Council chamber had never seen such tension. Representatives from dozens of species filled the Great Hall, but the normal diplomatic courtesy had been replaced by barely controlled panic. Multiple species faced Vortak invasions, and traditional defensive strategies were proving inadequate. Ambassador Chen met Martinez at the chamber entrance. Admiral, the situation is deteriorating rapidly. The Terranian Republic has lost 6 worlds in the past week. The hegemony is demanding the Council authorize total military mobilization. And the response? Chaos, Chen replied grimly. Half the species want to negotiate with the Vortak. The other half want to know why humans hid their true military capabilities for 50 years. Martinez took her place in the chamber as the session began. The first speaker was Senator Mordon of the Hegemony, his metallic voice filled with accusation. The humans have deceived this council for decades, he declared. They presented themselves as peaceful explorers while secretly building a military force capable of challenging established powers. This deception threatens the very foundation of galactic cooperation. Councillor Vexera from the Silicon Collective projected agreement. The mathematical implications are disturbing. If humanity possesses such capabilities, what other species might be concealing advanced technologies? Galactic stability depends on transparent military assessments. Ambassador Chin rose to respond. Honored delegates, humanity revealed our defensive capabilities only when faced with galactic genocide. Would you prefer we had remained silent while the Vorhack consumed all biological civilization? You should have consulted with the Council before taking unilateral military action, Senator Mordun replied. Galactic law requires Council members to provide mutual defense against existential threats, Admiral Martinez interrupted, stepping forward to address the Assembly. When the Kalani requested assistance, every major power refused. Humanity acted alone because no one else would act at all. The chamber erupted in angry discussion. Martinez waited for the noise to subside before continuing. Honored delegates, she said formally, I have information that changes the fundamental nature of this conflict. She transmitted Webb's intelligence analysis to the Council's central computers. The chamber fell silent as representatives absorbed the implications of the data. The Vorhack are not a species, Martinez explained. They are weapons created by an extinct civilization. Weapons that can be permanently deactivated if the proper conditions are met. Ambassador Zarath was the first to speak. Admiral Martinez, are you stating that the Vorhack threat can be eliminated entirely? Yes, Martinez replied. But, it requires specific military actions that only humanity currently has the capability to execute. We need to destroy Vorhack fleets in 2 more major battles to trigger their shutdown sequence. Senator Mordun scoffed. And, we should simply trust human claims about ancient alien technology? How convenient that only human forces are capable of implementing this solution. Senator, Martinez replied with ice in her voice, you're welcome to test our intelligence with your own forces. How many hegemony ships have you managed to destroy in your battles with the Vorhack? How many successful engagements has any Council species achieved? The silence that followed answered her question. No other species had managed even a single significant victory against the Vorhack. What do you require from the Council? Asked Ambassador Zarath. 2 things, Martinez replied. First, complete intelligence sharing regarding Vorhack fleet positions and movements. Second, formal Council authorization for humanity to engage any Vorhack force regardless of their current location or targets. The second requirement caused immediate objections. Several species protested the idea of human military forces operating freely in their territory, even against a common enemy. You're asking for unprecedented military authority, Senator Mordun observed. I'm asking for the authority to save your civilizations, Martinez replied bluntly. The Vorhack don't care about your territorial sovereignty. They'll strip your worlds to build more ships whether you give humans permission to defend them or not. The debate continued for hours, but the mathematics of war were inexorable. Species after species reported additional Vorhack attacks. The enemy was accelerating their expansion, apparently determined to achieve total victory before humanity could interfere further. Finally, Councillor Vexera projected a formal proposal. The Silicon Collective moves to grant temporary military authority to human forces for the specific purpose of implementing the Vorhack shutdown sequence. This authorization expires immediately upon completion of the required military objectives. The vote was closer than Martinez had hoped, but it passed. Humanity now had formal galactic authority to hunt down and destroy Vorhack fleets anywhere in Council space. As the session ended, Ambassador Zarath approached Martinez privately. Admiral, many species are terrified of what humanity might become after this war. You've revealed capabilities that dwarf our most advanced civilizations. What assurance can you give that humans won't use this power to dominate the galaxy? Martinez considered the question seriously. It was the same concern that had led humanity to hide their true capabilities for 50 years. Ambassador, she replied finally, judge us by our actions, not our capabilities. We revealed our strength only to save others. When this war is over, humanity will return to peaceful exploration and trade. We have no interest in ruling the galaxy. And, if other species don't believe that? Then, they'll learn that humanity defends itself as effectively as it defends others, Martinez said quietly. But, we hope it won't come to that. As her shuttle returned to the fleet, Martinez reflected on the political minefield she now had to navigate. Humanity had gained the authority to end the Vortak threat, but they had also revealed themselves as the galaxy's dominant military power. The real challenge wouldn't be defeating the Vortak. It would be convincing the galaxy that humanity could be trusted with the strength to reshape civilizations. Admiral Thekmore was waiting with urgent news when she returned to the fleet. Admiral, our reconnaissance ships have located 2 major Vortak staging areas. Each contains over 2,000 vessels preparing for coordinated attacks on the Turanian Republic and the Eternal Empire. Perfect targets for major defeats, Martinez observed. How long before they begin their attacks? 72 hours, based on their preparation activities. Martinez nodded grimly. 2 battles, 2 victories, and the Vortak would be permanently deactivated. But those battles would require everything humanity had built in secret over the past 50 years. Contact Admiral Fletcher at Sole Command, she ordered. Tell him to send everything. We're going to end this war before it destroys galactic civilization. The final phase of Operation Total War was about to begin. The largest human fleet ever assembled materialized at the edge of the Turanian Republic's Nexus system. 800 ships, including vessels so classified that only Admiral Martinez and her senior staff knew their true capabilities. Admiral Fletcher had sent everything humanity had built in secret, knowing this would be the decisive moment of the war. Admiral, reported Captain Ross from the UES Prometheus, target analysis complete. The Vortak staging area contains 2,300 vessels. They're positioned around the gas giant Torx Prime, using its moons as construction facilities. Martinez studied the tactical display showing the enemy formation. The Vortak had learned from their previous defeat and adapted their positioning. Instead of a concentrated swarm, they had spread their ships across multiple orbital zones, making a single coordinated attack more difficult. They're trying to force us into piecemeal engagements, observed Commander Park. If we attack one group, the others can reinforce or retreat to fight another day. Then, we don't give them that option, Martinez replied. All ships, implement Formation Omega. We're going to hit all enemy positions simultaneously. Formation Omega was humanity's most ambitious battle plan, requiring precise coordination between hundreds of ships across millions of cubic kilometers. Only the extensive use of quantum communicators made such coordination possible. The human fleet divided into 8 attack groups, each targeting a different orbital zone around Torx Prime. The quantum resonance field generators had been upgraded based on data from the previous battle, ensuring that Vortak hive-mind coordination would be disrupted even more effectively. All groups report ready, announced Lieutenant Torres. Enemy forces show no indication of detecting our approach. Commence Operation Extinction, Martinez ordered. Show them what happens when humanity commits to total war. The battle began with a coordinated quantum pulse that shattered Vortak coordination across the entire system. 2,300 ships suddenly found themselves operating as confused individuals rather than a perfectly synchronized swarm. What followed was the most comprehensive display of human military technology ever witnessed. Advanced battleships unleashed gravitational weapons that compressed enemy vessels into singularities. Quantum torpedo spreads phased through Vortak defenses to detonate inside ship cores. Energy cascades from plasma weapons turned entire enemy formations into expanding clouds of superheated gas. The Vortak attempted to adapt their tactics, but human ships proved superior in every category of individual combat capability. Advanced targeting systems locked onto multiple enemies simultaneously while quantum computers calculated optimal firing solutions faster than organic minds could process. Admiral Thekmore, commanding the Kalani contingent, watched the systematic destruction with amazement. Admiral Martinez, your ships are not just winning. They're demonstrating technological superiority that exceeds anything in recorded galactic history. We've had 50 years to prepare for this day, Martinez replied while watching the tactical display show enemy ships disappearing by the dozens. Humanity learned early that the galaxy was dangerous. We decided to make ourselves more dangerous than anything we might encounter. Within 6 hours, the second qualifying defeat had been achieved. Over 2,000 Vortak ships destroyed with minimal human casualties. But, even as debris from the battle spread across the Torx system, Martinez knew the hardest fight still lay ahead. Admiral, reported Lieutenant Webb, quantum analysis indicates the Vortak homeworld has detected both of our major victories. They're implementing emergency protocols and recalling all dispersed fleets for a final assault. The sensor displays updated to show massive fleet movements throughout Vortex space. Every ship they had deployed across the galaxy was converging on a single staging area near their homeworld. Intelligence estimated over 8,000 vessels would participate in their last desperate attack. "Where are they targeting?" asked Captain Johnson. "Earth," Webb replied grimly. "They've identified humanity as the primary threat to their existence. If they can destroy our homeworld, they believe galactic resistance will collapse." Martinez felt ice form in her veins. The Vortex final assault wouldn't target military objectives or strategic resources. They were planning to exterminate humanity entirely, along with the 4 billion people living on Earth. "Time to Earth intercept? 96 hours if they depart immediately," calculated Commander Park. "They're consolidating forces now, which gives us perhaps another day of preparation time." Martinez activated the quantum communicator linking her to Sol Command. Admiral Fletcher appeared immediately, his expression grim with determination. "Henry," Martinez said without preamble, "they're coming for Earth. Everything they have left. We need to stop them before they reach the solar system." "I know," Fletcher replied. "Our deep space monitoring stations detected the fleet movements 30 minutes ago. Admiral, this is bigger than anything we planned for. 8,000 ships against our entire fleet." "Then, we make our stand at Earth," Martinez said firmly. "If we're going to trigger that failsafe, it has to be in defense of our homeworld. There's no retreat from this one." The next 18 hours saw the most massive military mobilization in human history. Every available ship was recalled to Sol system. Manufacturing facilities that had operated in secret for decades were activated to produce ammunition and spare parts. Earth's orbital defense platforms were armed with weapons that officially didn't exist. More importantly, humanity revealed the existence of the Sol Defense Grid, a network of automated defense platforms hidden throughout the outer solar system. Each platform carried enough firepower to destroy a small fleet, and there were over 300 of them positioned between the outer planets. Admiral Martinez arrived at Earth to find a fortress. The combined human fleet numbered just over 1,000 ships, but they were supported by the most advanced defensive network ever constructed. If humanity was going to make its final stand, they had chosen their ground well. "Admiral," reported Captain Ross, "long-range sensors are detecting the Vortex assault fleet. 8,200 vessels, approaching in standard swarm formation. Estimated arrival, 14 hours." Martinez looked out at Earth from the bridge of the UES Defiance. The blue-green world that had given birth to humanity now faced extinction at the hands of an ancient weapon system. But humanity had not survived as a species by accepting extinction quietly. "All ships," she announced over the fleet communication network, "this is Admiral Martinez. In 14 hours, we face the largest enemy force in recorded history. They come to our home system with the intention of exterminating our species and everyone we've ever cared about." She paused, looking at the faces of her crew, seeing the determination that had carried humanity from a single world to the stars. 50 years ago, we joined the galactic community as explorers seeking knowledge and friendship. We found a galaxy where the strong preyed on the weak and politics mattered more than justice. We learned to be stronger than our enemies while remembering why strength should be used. The tactical display showed the approaching Vortex fleet as a red wave of destruction heading inexorably toward Earth. Today, we prove that some things are worth risking everything to protect. Not just our own lives, but the principle that genocide is unacceptable regardless of who the victims are. We answered the Kalani distress call because it was right. Now we defend our home for the same reason. Martinez activated the quantum communicator that would transmit her words to every human ship and defense platform in the system. "This is our home. These are our people. This is our stand. Show them what humans do when everything we love is threatened. Show them why the galaxy will be better with humanity in it." The final battle began at the edge of the solar system as Vortex scouts encountered the outer defense platforms. The ancient weapons systems that had consumed civilizations for 2 million years met the newest spacefaring species, and space erupted with violence. But, this time, the Vortex faced an enemy that had been preparing specifically for this moment. Human ships used the solar system's gravitational fields and asteroid belts to their tactical advantage. Defense platforms created crossfire zones that no ship could survive intact. Quantum weapons reached across astronomical distances to strike with pinpoint precision. The battle raged for 18 hours as 8,000 Vorthack ships fought their way through layer after layer of human defenses. They paid a terrible price for each light minute of space, but their numbers seemed inexhaustible. "Admiral," reported Captain Johnson during a brief respite, "we've destroyed over 6,000 enemy vessels. But they're still coming. The inner defense grid is holding, but casualty reports are mounting." Martinez watched Earth hanging in space ahead of them, so close to the final Vorthack push. They needed to destroy at least 1,000 more ships to trigger the failsafe, but human losses were approaching 50% of the fleet. "All ships, final push," she ordered. "Everything we have. Make every shot count." The UES Prometheus led the charge, her experimental weapons systems tearing through the remaining Vorthack formation. Behind her, human ships that had been held in reserve joined the assault. The Sol defense grid activated its final protocol, every platform firing simultaneously at maximum power. In the space around Earth, two civilizations fought for the right to exist. One ancient and mechanical, following programming laid down millions of years ago. The other young and determined, fighting for principles they had chosen to embrace. When the quantum resonance field finally disrupted the last Vorthack coordination nodes, over 7,000 enemy ships had been destroyed. The ancient failsafe activated across the galaxy as the architect programming recognized that its weapons had been definitively defeated. Throughout Vorthack space, millions of ships simply stopped functioning. The hive mind that had driven them for 2 million years went silent. Without central control, the organic vessels began to decompose, their biological components returning to the space from which they had been harvested. In the council chamber on Centralis Prime, representatives watched in amazement as reports poured in from across the galaxy. Vorthack fleets that had been attacking 17 different species simply vanished as their ships lost cohesion and fell apart. The greatest threat galactic civilization had ever known was gone, eliminated by the species the Council had once dismissed as primitive newcomers. But humanity's victory came at a cost that would reshape galactic politics forever. They had revealed military capabilities that exceeded anything previously imagined. No species in the galaxy could challenge human dominance if they chose to exercise it. Admiral Martinez stood on the observation deck of the rebuilt UES Defiance, looking out at Earth where 4 billion people continued their lives unaware of how close they had come to extinction. The victory celebrations were over, and now came the harder task of building a lasting peace. Ambassador Chen joined her with a datapad full of diplomatic requests. "Admiral, we've received formal alliance offers from 37 species. The colony want to establish permanent military cooperation agreements. Even the hegemony is requesting technology sharing negotiations. And the species that refused to help during the war? They're the most eager to establish good relations now," Chen replied with diplomatic irony. Amazing how perspectives change when you need protection from the people you previously ignored. Martinez nodded thoughtfully. "What's our official response? The President wants to accept limited cooperation agreements with species that demonstrate genuine commitment to mutual defense and peaceful development. We're not interested in becoming galactic overlords, but we won't ignore threats to innocent populations either." Looking out at the stars where humanity's influence now extended across the galaxy, Martinez reflected on how far they had come from the species that had answered a simple distress call. The galaxy had begged for help, and humanity had answered with everything they had. Now it was time to build the peace they had fought to protect. The war was over. Humanity had won. But, more importantly, they had proven that some principles were worth fighting for, regardless of the cost. In a galaxy that had grown comfortable with looking away from genocide, one species had chosen to stand up and say no more. The distress call had been answered. The war had been won. The galaxy would remember that when the darkness came, humanity had been willing to light a candle rather than curse the void. And perhaps that would make all the difference in the wars yet to come.